for the interest that you able to.
Well, thank you for coming out this evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Bob Smith, and I'm excited about this opportunity to participate in this campaign. I guess in introducing myself, I should start out by saying I have a varied background, not just in law, but I have a degree in accounting. I'm a CPA, worked for some Big Four accounting firms before deciding to go on, and I received a Master's in Business Administration, an MBA, from the University of Notre Dame. I think that background has been very helpful to me in managing organizations. After doing that and working in business, and I went back to law school and went to the BYU Law School, where I was the editor-in-chief of the Law Reviews, finished in the top of our class, and was a member of the Order of the Court. Following that, I served with State Court, Supreme Court Justice. I also went to work as a tax attorney in Chicago for one of the large law firms in the country. Then I went to Washington, D.C. to learn how to fight with the IRS. And I became a controversy lawyer dealing with tax issues for national and international clients. I was then asked to return to Salt Lake, and I was invited to join the law firm of Kirkland & Conkey, where I was a shareholder and the chairman of the tax and corporate department of that law firm. I represented the taxable entities of the LDS Church for a number of years in defending them against IRS investigations and audits. I worked thereafter at a business in Bountiful, Utah. I was the executive vice president, and thank you. And
It's not yours.
oh, that's yours. And general counsel of a successful business in Bountiful, where we represented large companies like General Motors and Dow Chemical in their litigation. And so we were involved with massive litigation that spanned multiple time zones in the United States, dealing with lawyers all over the country. And thereafter, I came to the Brigham Young University Law School, where I've been for 7.5 years as the managing director of the International Center for Law and Religion Studies. In that, what does yellow mean?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. In that capacity, I've helped organize conferences around the world to bring people together to fight for religious freedom and for basic values and for freedoms. We bring government leaders of all kinds, legal officers who come together to figure out a strategy for fighting these battles. And what I would like to do is work with the attorneys generals of other states and fight those battles together with them.
Where's Linda? Thank you, Linda. Where'd you go for setting this up? Linda Pipkin, and all of you who are here in attendance tonight. Appreciate that very much. Pastor Crowder, thank you very, very much. Thank you for your support in the past and for your generosity tonight. And please thank Chris, too. And good luck in the basketball game. People ask Michelle why she's running for Attorney General. People ask me all the time, why are you running again for Attorney General? And my answer is simple, because I had a very enthusiastic vision for what the Attorney General's office could be and should be. And in the 18 months or so since that time that I had the opportunity to run last, my passion for service and my excitement about what we can make the Attorney General's office has not diminished, has not waned in any form. I have known many of you and appreciate all of you who are in attendance, particularly the Central Committee members, because I know what kind of a sacrifice it takes. I know how much time you spend away from the family. And we've worked together on a number of different and important issues. I don't think you're going to find that we differ much on policies or principles, frankly, or on the issues very much. But like Michelle, I believe that as I've spoken to you, you want what I want in the Attorney General's office. You want somebody who really is a leader, who can come in immediately and make the hard changes and return that office to its once proud state, to win back the trust of the public. You want somebody who's not worried about political agendas. The attorney's office is surrounded by politics, but I don't think it should be an overtly political office, if that makes sense to you. shouldn't be about politics first. That shouldn't be what drives the decisions that we make to protect our citizens in the state of Utah. It should be about what's in their best interest and what's constitutional. I want to get back to just being fine lawyers, and it's going to take a little while. It's going to take more than 1 year. I think that's an important point too. I'm committed not only to come in and turn things around, which I think we can make significant strides immediately, but I'm committed to run in 2014 and run in 2016 and continue to hold that office for the Republican Party and make sure that we are the ones to clean things up there and rebuild confidence and trust. As I've talked to you, you said you want somebody who values the caucus system, as I do. You said you want somebody who's been vetted in a statewide election, as I have. As I've listened to you, you said you want somebody who has core, it's 30 seconds, principal values, and somebody who has the legal skills. And as I get a chance to talk to you more tonight, I'll tell you about that. Somebody who's got leadership and management experience, which I have plenty of. And I think that combination distinguishes me. Although I think highly of each of these fellow candidates on the stage, I think I have a very unique blend to bring, and it's what we need immediately, and what we'll need in 2014 and in 2016. So it's Sean Reyes, and I ask for your vote and support on the 14th. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Brian Tarvin. I grew up about 40 miles north of here on a small farm in Cache Valley. And if I'd had my way, I'd still be farming. I loved it. Maybe not tonight, it might be a little chilly up there tonight. But it still was a great way to grow up. Went to school at Utah State, went in the Army for a couple of years, came back, went to school at the University of Utah. Came out and practiced law for 10 years, and one of my classmates was Justice Wilkins' wife, Diane, and a great attorney in her own right, and went on to a distinguished career. I went to the Attorney General's office in 1988 and worked there for 12 years in the Tax and Revenue Division, where I loved my work. Not getting tax money out of you, but learning a lot about business and how to try cases, courts of appeal, Utah Supreme Court. It was a wonderful opportunity, and I there and then met a wonderful group of people. Well, events took me away from that occasion. I always had a love for the military. I was always in the Guard part-time. I was what they call a traditional Guardsman. And so in 2000, Governor Levitt asked me to run the National Guard, which I then did for 12 years under 4 governors. A lot of this military stuff you need to understand. Generals only succeed because of the work of those who work with them and under them. Any accomplishments I have are those of other people. That's the similar situation that we have at the Attorney General's office. Today, we had a holiday luncheon there. Of the 440 employees in that office, there were 240 lawyers, 200 support staff. 310 of them were at the Rotunda today, and we were able to thank them for their work this past year. This has been a brutal year. One of our fine employees is here tonight. This has been a tough year for us. We're ready to move on and move out. The skill set that I bring to it is a deep knowledge of the office, how it works, what needs to be done. It needs to be done quickly, folks, because any of these folks, and I applaud all of them, and I came away from the debate last night thinking, this is going to be okay. We're going to get a good new Attorney General out of this process. But any one of them that comes to this job is going to find something real quick. You can only get rid of about 2 of the lawyers, the deputies. The rest are career services. So you have to know precisely what you're going to do when you begin to move to correct this system. It's going to be a huge challenge. You're going to have to know exactly where you're going and when you're going. You're going to have to rebuild some bridges with the legislature, with the executive branch. These are my former colleagues in large part. I worked for Governor Herbert. I think I can offer a meaningful way to do that. And I agree with Judge Wilkins. It's a turnaround. You've got to take politics out of this for a few months. Let this simmer down. Thank you much.
The first question is, what will you do on your first day on the job and into your first week?
Thank you. Aside from my legal practice, I've done turnarounds for businesses, so I know a little bit about this. And those assess, analyze, allocate, and attack, those are the 4 A's that I use also. So day 1, you're meeting with every single person in the office, not all on the same day, but as soon as you can. Top to bottom leadership, ask for the resignations, see who will reapply, because that fosters a true competitive environment, and you want the people who are hungry. applying. Ask and listen and find out, and then externally from there, sit down with the executive branch. We need time with the governor and the agencies, and healing some of those relationships has been alluded to. And then get out to the outer counties and make sure that every county feels that it has a voice. That's been missing as well. The Attorney General's office needs to be out in each county, listening to the stakeholders there, supporting the county attorneys and supporting all of the stakeholders as well. So those are some of the very first things I would do in addition to an audit. Ask for an audit, not to be disruptive, but I've had Assistant Attorney General say we would like one so that the public knows what a great job we're doing and that we're doing it well and right.
Well, I've already had my first day. And important steps were taken. First of all, the idea of audits is a good one, but you need to target them. The first thing I had looked at was our vehicle usage. I've had the state auditor come in and examine that. We've started a top-down review of our grandma is access to government records. We started to revise that because in this process, we found a failing with that. The larger sense, when someone comes in here shortly, they're going to have to make top changes at the deputy level. That happens every administration. It's to be expected that it should be done. But the Career Service Act that we talked about, I need to make one comment about that. It is to isolate the attorneys from politics. It is not to protect them. You don't want your entire Attorney General's office changing, whether you have a Democrat in or a Republican in. Many years ago, Scott Burns ran against Jan Graham, who was my boss. She was a Democrat. And I have to think if either one of them had won, there would have been no difference in how that office conducted its business.
All right, thank you very much. You know, as I think about the problems that were discussed last night, I'm struck by two issues. One is the campaign contribution issues. The other is the possibility of actual criminal wrongdoing where there's missing files and hard drives and things like that. Those require two different responses. And I think I would first sit down with the general and discuss with him his concerns about both of those issues to lay out a strategy. The second thing I think is important to realize is, besides being in the chair every day, we need to be thinking about the people of Utah. I think it's important to hold a press conference. When there's a new president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they hold a press conference to talk to the members of the church. When this person is in this position, you need to talk to the people of the state of Utah and give them your commitments, lay out your plan, help them understand what we're going to do so they don't guess and wonder what we're trying to do at the Office of Attorney General.
What will you do in addressing the federal lands transfer that need to be transferred to Utah, and why will your actions be more successful than our last Attorney General?
Thanks. I would definitely continue to fight on the RS 2477 roads. I think that's an important one. Many of you who are out in the rural areas understand how important those are. I also want to look for some easy cases, some easy wins, because this is such a big issue and it's going to take us many, many years, and we can't win overnight. Those easy cases are some of these. We have SITLA lands that are set apart for the education of our children. Constitutionally, we should have access to develop those. We can't in many instances because the federal government, it's landlocked around those. I'd like to file some lawsuits there because I think we could win not only legally, but in the court of public opinion. And that's what we're going to need in order to really be effective with HB 148. Not just a lawsuit from Utah alone. I think Wayne Niederhauser and Ken Ivory just met with 100 leaders or so from many of the western states on December 7th. That's the type of coalition building that I would like to continue, and I think I can bring with Western attorneys general, with the governors, and with a number of organizations, both private and public, to help us with this fight. It's a critical one because we could fund our $2.6 billion education shortfall with taxing those lands.
I think I agree with what Bob Smith and Michelle have said. We've got to build some coalitions here with our state and federal officials. Rob Bishop's done a good job leading out on this, but those need to be pursued. I don't think we're going to win this in court alone. We're going to have to win this politically. We're going to have to move this along in terms of coalitions working this. We've had some notable successes. Mike mentioned Tony Rampton, Harry Subal. Those roads people are doing a terrific job. We've had some key wins. It's important that we do this because they're out in the field every day with video cameras taking depositions of people that are dying, who are the only ones that have a remembrance of those roads. So we don't have a lot of shelf life to get this fixed. And working with Kathleen Clark at the Public Lands Office, we've done a good job. But I think we've got to move on a broader front, both at the federal and state level, to crack this nut.
Attorneys can cooperate. That's a very important. You know, this is a huge issue, and I think there's broad agreement amongst us about the strong legal arguments that will ultimately prevail if the rule of law is followed. But I think it's important to recognize that the rule of law has not been in high priority at the White House the last few years. We don't have an executive branch and leaders at the federal level who care strongly about the rule of law. And so this is going to take more than just a great legal argument from the AG's office in Utah. It's going to take the strong legal argument of the AGs of all the western states. And it's going to take the political power of all of those people in all those western states. And imagine the power of blue and red states all coming together and prevailing on the federal government. Trillions of dollars are at issue. They won't come easily. So we need to join together with others and create a legal and political strategy that will win.
Start with Mr. Sean Reyes. The question reads, will you support non... Do you need a third one? You need a third one? The question reads, will you support non-contingent warrants for minor infractions? And if you don't mind, can I just modify it a little bit, because I don't think we've ever had an infraction no-knock warrant. I'm not even sure I've ever seen a misdemeanor. So if you don't mind, can I change that to will you support no-knock and inner warrants for non-violent felonies?
Yeah, no, I'm opposed to those. I think that they impinge too much on our civil liberties. Not only no-knock, warrantless searches that our Attorney General in the past has tried to get passed through the legislature, administrative subpoenas. I know there are people in the office who think that they are valuable. And I think law enforcement, of course, if their job is easier, they're interested. But the important thing here in the office, and I will say from day one, our office will not win the wrong way. We're not going to cheat and deprive people's civil liberties in order to do our job. If we have to work harder, if we have to work smarter, then that's what we must do. But I am absolutely not willing to give away what's already been eroding far too much in our state. And so even though administrative subpoenas are used prevalently, since it's not mandatory and I have discretion, day one I'm going to instruct our office that we will not use those, because I believe that's cheating and winning the wrong way. Thank you.
I think it's a balancing test, and I think Justice Wilkins got it just right.
Well, you now know a lot about the law that goes behind no-knock warrants. Let me just add my feeling that the only justification is the safety of the peace officers who have to carry out and execute the warrant. And I think we have to keep their safety in mind. But we also have to be concerned about the safety of others and the civil liberties that are at issue. We live at a time when the government intrusion has become very great. We know all about the NSA, we know about the IRS and its activities, we know about a number of different activities where the government has become very intrusive in our lives, and we have to protect our right to privacy from the officers in the state. And so I would be very anxious to balance that test in a way that is not overused.
And I'll work my way through the question. There's a citation at the top of the question that references the Utah Constitution right to bear arms. And understanding that the Attorney General's office should provide supervision to all county and district attorneys, the question relates around law enforcement officers arresting or citing individuals of peace when they are lawfully carrying firearms. What is your position on this?
I've enjoyed many of these questionnaires we've all had to fill out over the past few days. And it's asked us dozens and dozens of questions about what we think and why we think it. But in point of fact, the Attorney General does not make law and does not make policy. Now, I say this as a proud owner of multiple shotguns. There's nothing I'd rather do on the weekend than go out with the boys. They hit the targets, I miss them, but we all have a good time. So I take great pride in that, and great pride in the use of the weapons. But in point of fact, in areas like this, the Attorney General follows and enforces the law. If you want to change those, you do that legislatively with your legislative representatives. Thanks.
I would agree with those comments. I think this is an issue that involves the legislature. I think there's a vigorous debate in the state. There's a great deal of animated feeling because of the federal rules and the federal concerns. And I think that while that we live in a state that has its own state constitution and its own restrictions, I think it's all in the shadow of the federal questions. And I think it's important that when we give signals about laws, that we take that into consideration. And I think there are many that look at the federal level that don't have the same respect for the Second Amendment. And we have to reinforce that notion whenever possible. And so that would be my view on what to do.
I learned early in my legal career not to disagree with a judge, particularly a Supreme Court judge. So on the constitutional issues, I absolutely agree with the justice. However, I am a strong proponent of the Second Amendment, concealed carry permit for many, many years, NRA approved, and I'm not a fan and do not support law enforcement citing people who are lawfully carrying. I just don't, that is the law, and they're allowed to do it, and I understand there's a balance. I understand that there is a concern in public, but disturbing the peace, you have to show some other conduct aside from, there are too many people who are good, honest, Second Amendment supporters that I've heard of getting harassed for that kind of lawful conduct. So I absolutely do not condone citations for lawful carry. And I would support constitutional carry, by the way.
Please tell us your position with regards to asset forfeiture and if agencies who were involved with seizures should be recipients of those assets.
When asset forfeiture becomes a profit center for the agency, then I think we have a problem. If asset forfeiture is tied tightly to the commission of a crime, in other words, if the assets that are forfeited were those used in perpetrating the crime, then I have much less heartburn with it. But it requires extremely careful oversight, should be just judiciously used and carefully monitored.
You know, I agree that it's overused, and I think that the problem with asset forfeiture is it leaves potentially innocent persons without their assets, and they're completely innocent of any crime, and there's no particular remedy that may result in them other than agency discretion. And I think it's a problem for the agency to receive those funds because their discretion is compromised. I think one of the issues, if we've learned anything during the last year, is that money corrupts. And we don't want to have agencies with a financial incentive to go out and seize the assets of unwitting persons whose assets are used in a crime. So I think it's very important that we safeguard the due process rights that people expect. Most people do not understand asset forfeitures if the person, unless they can prove that the person was knowingly involved. And so I think it should be very scary.
Agreed. To the second part of that question, I absolutely don't think that the agencies should be allowed to hold that and use those proceeds. It's a total incentive for doing potentially the wrong thing, again, violating people's civil liberties. Asset forfeiture, we as a people, we settled that issue in early 2000, and it was an attorney general of ours who worked with law enforcement to get that back in. Here's my biggest problem with civil asset forfeiture. So many times it is abused. It's done without the property owner's knowledge. It's done even though that property owner is never charged with the crime, and it's done based on the lower civil standards that apply. And there are rare instances, I will concede, where I think it could be an effective tool, and if the owner is charged criminally, I have less of an issue with it. I'm still not a fan of the idea, but importantly, as Michelle said, let's put that money back into education and disincentivize having it go to the watchers.
Bob Smith, how do you feel about illegal immigration? And does Utah do enough to prosecute illegals that commit crimes?
That's a really important question. Obviously, we're in the middle of a political debate about illegal immigration. We have a bill that's been passed, signed by the governor, and has not been put into effect yet. I think everyone, most Republicans, I should say, agree that we don't want to encourage illegal immigration. I think the question, though, it's a human question, and what to do about the fact that we already have persons who are not properly in this country. And so we obviously want to stop the inflow of immigrants, illegal immigrants, but this is a federal question as well, and it's important to recognize that under the U.S. Constitution, immigration is a federal prerogative, and so we have to work cooperatively with the federal government in solving this problem. I think it's mostly a political issue, and as the Attorney General, I would follow the law and enforce the laws as they're in effect.
I opposed HB 116, which is an unconstitutional bill. I supported HB 497, which I think was a proper exercise of the state's police power, mandating background checks for those who are arrested for serious crimes and offenses. Like Michelle, I think there's thousands of cases of identity theft that occur. Secure Strike Force needs to be resourced to take care of that, and I would aggressively pursue identity theft, particularly where it impacts our children. Not just our children now, but our children who aren't even born yet. We also need an E-Verify bill that has some teeth, and I would do everything in my power as Attorney General to pressure the federal government once and for all to come up with a comprehensive solution, starting with border enforcement.
Several years ago, I had responsibility for a group of young men, and one of those was an illegal alien who was picked up because his tail light was out and fell into the embrace of ICE in the local county's jail. I got to go visit him over the next few weeks as he was being deported, and I went down to the ICE offices on 53rd South and Murray and put him on a plane to Argentina. This tears family apart. We need compassion. On the flip side, Utah National Guard was one of the first units on the border building the fence. They work. Borders work. They can be secured. But it is a federal question, and it's like we talked about last night. This is one of those issues where the federal government's running roughshod over the rule of law. You need to change your president, change your Senate. You can make some progress on this.
Okay, so this question is first, what is your Martindale-Hubbell rating, and how do you feel about the Count My Vote initiative? All within a minute.
I grew up in California, and I do not want a direct primary. It will ruin the grassroots politics that you and I know and love. I've worked arm in arm with Chairman Gabrielson against the Count My Vote initiative, and I'm a very big supporter of the caucus system. As far as the Martindale-Hubbell rating, I know Scott was being a little tongue-in-cheek. That's one rating you cannot buy. It's done anonymously. It's done by people that you don't even know or necessarily rating you, by your peers that you've worked with and against in courtrooms. And it is an honest assessment, at least from your peers, about whether they trust you and what your skill level is. You can have an A, B, or C rating for skill level, but you cannot get a skill rating until you get a B for integrity. So you have to be honest, professional, and your peers have to get that. I haven't had an AV rating, the highest integrity and skill rating, since I was a senior associate. So I was a little ahead of my time in getting it, but I'm proud of that Martindale-Hubbell rating, and I would appreciate, again, your vote December 14th. Sean Reyes, thank you.
That's what I had too, the highest.
Pardon, we went back.
For the last 13 years, I've been in the military, so I don't have a current Martindale-Hubbell rating. But when I was last in the office, I was selected as the Tax Practitioner of the Year by the tax section of the bar. As to count my vote, I'm for whatever empowers the people and engages the most the people in the process. I've been in mass meetings when there were two guys in a living room. And in 2010, I was in a school where it was filled to overflowing. That was the Bennett Lee year. And so I'll simply suggest that as we look at this, what we want is a system that engages the bulk of the citizenry. Not with money, but with grassroots.
Like others, I'm at the law school for the last 7.5 years. so I haven't participated in the Martindale Hubble rankings. Let me just tell you my story about the caucuses. I grew up in California. We lived in a number of states, including Illinois, Maryland, Virginia, Indiana, Idaho, and I can tell you that it is a privilege to be a part of the caucus system. When we first moved here 14 years ago, my neighbor called me up and said, if you're a Republican, we're picking you up tomorrow and going down to the caucus. And I didn't know what that was, and by the end of the night I was a state delegate, and I was participating in the selection of our congressman. And we had 10 Republican persons who were vying for the nomination that year, and it was a thrill to participate with them and to be part of the opportunity to choose our congressman from the state. And since then, I had the opportunity to work in the party and in a number of capacities, and so I'm a real proponent, and I love the caucus system.
We'd like to express our appreciation for each of you coming down. We're lucky to have so many qualified candidates, and we appreciate your energy, your time, and all the hard work that you've done, and good luck to you. We'd like to maybe spend a little bit of time maybe mingling, ask a couple quick questions before you go. Thank you very much.